One day I was sitting around, I was thinking, what is something that I could do that's really cool, unique, different, there's no competition, that's early on in the process that I can get on the wave and ride it through. And Earth Day came along and I said, you know what, I'm gonna be the first person to pick up recycling. So I started researching it, and there was nobody picking up recycling in North Fulton County or in Forsyth County. They were just, back then, mostly independent guys that had garbage businesses, and you had your guy and he came by and picked up your garbage, but nobody was picking up recycling. So I had a buddy that sold garbage trucks and garbage paraphernalia, and I went to him and he said, yeah man, you can buy these little bins and you can give them to people or sell them to people, and then they can put their recycling in there. And then the next thing I knew, I had to buy a recycling truck. So I started this whole business on recycling, and it was a disaster. Because then nobody wanted to pay you to pick up their recycling. They were like, I'm giving you this stuff and you're gonna turn around and sell it. And so one of my famous stories was I filled up a whole dump truck of glass and took it all the way down by the airport. And I dumped that whole dump truck of glass and I got $40 for it. And the gas bill was $35 in the dump truck. Not counting what it cost me for a month to pick up that much glass. There was no money to be made. So that convinced us that maybe we needed to be in the garbage business too. So we went and bought a garbage truck. So yeah, I drove a garbage truck, I rode on the back of a garbage truck, I had a recycling truck and a garbage truck. And so what I realized in the garbage business was these independent guys that were out there, we would come in and say to somebody, hey, we'll get your garbage and we'll pick up your recycling. It's kind of a duo thing, and we'll do it for X amount of dollars a month. We're gonna give you a really nice roly-poly garbage cans. Those garbage cans you see now with wheels on it, one of the first people to have those garbage cans available. Now everybody's got them. What I realized, the guys riding on the garbage truck, what they would do is they would come to pick up, like I would get a deal and they would come back to that customer say, no, I'm dealing with Beecham now. And they would go, well, what's he charging? And they'd say, $25 a month. And they'd say, well, I'll pick it up for $20 a month if you pay me for a year in advance. And so I would lose my customer back to these guys. And then what would happen is they wouldn't report it to their boss. Just the guy that worked for the garbage company was keeping the cash and throwing the garbage on the back of his truck. It was hard to compete with that. It was almost impossible to compete with that. But we built that business up a little bit, and part of that process was I had a partner. I needed some capital to buy these trucks and buy this equipment, and a good friend of mine and I decided to partner up, and it ended up hurting our friendship, and he ended up kind of buying me out of the company because he had a lot more cash in it. So that was a good rule too, as I learned, whoever's got the cash makes the rules. Whoever's most in with the money makes the rules. It was not right for me to tell him what to do when he had the most in there as an investment. And I kind of decided at that point in time that anytime I get in a partnership, I'm gonna be a minority. In other words, my saying is somebody's gotta drive and somebody's gotta sit in the back seat. So like I have a partnership now it's an 80-20 partnership. I'm a 20% partner, the other person's 80. They're making all decisions, they're spending most of the money, and I'm there to help them in whatever guidance I can give them. And mostly what I bring to the table is marketing skills. And so that's what I've done with several businesses. But anyway, I had an experience of starting something brand new, something that was that nobody had really brought to the market, and trying to figure out how to convince people that this was cool and they needed to use it. And it was a very tough thing to do. And I'm not so sure that we did that. We may have been too early. It's kind of like a friend of mine said, you know, the second guy in is the one that wins. Some guy goes and builds a golf course and spends all this money and he loses it, and the next guy that buys it, he's the guy that makes the money. And there's a lot to be said for that in business. So if you're thinking about a new idea, new concept, trying to figure out, I'm doing a little bit of consulting now. I'd love to talk to you about it, tell you about my experience, tell you about a lot of other people I've talked to's experience, and maybe help you make your experience a lot better.